Hi there everyone, this is Jed Schlackman. In this video we'll be covering the topic of fear, really looking to understand fear more deeply. We'll see how fear in a sense actually arises from love, since we're wanting to protect or preserve something or someone, and the fear is there to act as a guide to help us react or respond to something that could pose a threat or hazard. So fear in that sense is not something to be afraid of. It's something to understand, to recognize its role in our life here in physical reality so that we can in a way master it. We can recognize how it can be useful and also how it can kind of go out of control, how it can start to consume us or interfere with our rational judgment, with our ability to respond more consciously to a situation in the present. Since fear tends to be more of a primal subconscious reaction, we're responding with that fear or responding to that fear so that we can react quickly, so that we can do whatever is needed to protect ourselves, whether we need to freeze, flee, or fight in a particular situation. The fear is there to lead us to respond as quickly as possible. So when you're in a fear state, you tend to be in a reflexive or reactive mode rather than a mindful, calm thinking mode. There are uses and benefits for each of those modes. We wouldn't have that fear mode, that fight or flight survival mode, if it didn't serve some purpose to actually help us survive. So we don't want to completely eliminate or eradicate our ability to sense or perceive threats and dangers and feel fear. That fear has a purpose. We just want to not get stuck in that reactive state. We want to be able to slow down and calm ourselves down both physically and psychologically, so that in situations where a more mindful, a more thoughtful response is beneficial, we can shift into that more thoughtful and mindful mode. If we look at all the different fears that human beings experience, we can see that in general, those fears in a way actually arise from love or from caring about oneself or others. If you're afraid or phobic about something causing harm to you, it's because you actually love yourself, you value your life, and so you want to protect yourself from anything that could cause harm. In some cases, it's a physical threat, although in other situations, our fear arises from things that are more of a social or psychological nature. So we might be fearful of being judged by others, of being abandoned or rejected, embarrassed or humiliated. We also can experience fear that's related to our concern for others. A good example would be a parent who is fearful of harm coming to their child. So they're constantly sensing or perceiving things that they think could cause harm to the well-being of their child, and reacting or responding to those fears. Part of learning to better master our fears is to consider the deep underlying beliefs that trigger those fears. In some cases, we're not willing to accept the reality of danger and physical reality. So we think that if we look for and identify every potential threat, we can maintain safety and security. We can gain that sense of comfort and feeling that we're secure. That can be taken to an extreme, since it's impossible to eliminate every possible threat to our physical integrity. We just can't control everything about physical reality, just as we can't control our social or psychological environment. We can't control every other person around us. We don't determine what everyone else is going to think, feel, or say. We have to accept ultimately that there may be people who will judge us or criticize us, who won't approve of us, who will say negative things about us. That's just part of this reality. And if we became obsessed with trying to prevent those things from happening, it would really consume our life and impair our ability to be more in the moment, to be able to enjoy our life more, to be able to focus in a positive way on creating the things that we desire or expressing the things that we wish to express. So we can find more of that balance where we can realize the purpose and the usefulness of fear, while also seeing how it can kind of go out of control or become over-enhanced or over-energized and inhibit us from being more in the flow of life. So rather than fearing fear, rather than looking at it in a completely polarized way, where any time that fear arises, we seek to deny it or suppress it or ignore it, we can learn to be more present with it, to observe it, to be able to understand why that fear arises, what part of our being has created or generated that fear for what it believes is a positive purpose. And then from that more whole and integrated state of our own consciousness, we can determine if there is anything practical that we need to do in relation to that fear. And we may realize that that fear is exaggerated, that we don't really need to give so much energy and attention to it, that we're not in immediate existential danger, that we can trust life more, we can let things flow. And we can also be grounded in a deeper spiritual truth, in the understanding that we are ultimately immortal, eternal, spiritual beings, or spiritual consciousness. So no matter what ultimately occurs here in our physical life, our true essential self is never really harmed. I hope that this discussion of fear, of its sources and purposes, gives you some insight into the role that fear plays in your life and in the lives of other people around you. For those that are seeking help with your own psychological or emotional issues or other mental or physical health concerns, you can visit my website to learn more about these topics, phinsights.com. That's PHINSIGHTS.com. For now, I would like to wish each of you a wonderful day. Namaste.